Hi, Craig Urquhart here. Welcome to another edition of Berlin Conversations. And today I'm very pleased to have a dear friend of mine, Mr. Todd Fletcher, who is a composer and an educator who lives here in Berlin. And welcome, Todd. It's so great to see you.
Thank you, Craig. It's good to be here.
Yeah, we go back a few years, don't we?
Indeed.
Remind me how we met?
We met, let's see, once upon a time I was a singer in the Harvard Crocodillos, an a cappella singing group, and this group had sung for Leonard Bernstein, and on the wall of our office was some Leonard Bernstein memorabilia, and also Harry Kraut's information, Leonard Bernstein's manager, of course, as you know well. And at that point, I was 19, and I was becoming, like so many musicians of that time, a huge Bernstein fan. And I had read that he was coming to Boston. So I thought, well, why don't I send a fax to Harry Kraut?
What?
Yeah, exactly, a fax. Think about it. And amazingly, he responded. I said, I know you're coming to Boston. I'm at Harvard, sophomore studying music. I would love to meet Maestro Bernstein. And shortly after I wrote that, he responded saying, absolutely no problem. We're performing at the Boston Opera House. Meet us across the street and we'll walk over together. And there you were.
Yeah.
And that's, however many years ago that was, when I was 19, that's when we met for the first time.
And because of that meeting, didn't Lenny write a piece for the Crocodile?
Well, he had actually written that a few years before.
Okay,
he saw them, I forget where it was that he had seen them, and then wrote a piece, an original piece in 5/4, which they still sing with a lot of difficulty, but do a great job with it.
Well, I'm sure they do. They're a great group.
Yeah.
And then we met again at Carnegie Hall.
Exactly.
That's when our friendship really developed.
Exactly. I think it was with the Vienna Philharmonic and Thomas Hampson.
Yeah, 1989.
I went back, and that's where we first really made a connection.
Yeah, right. It's super, and on a real journey ever since.
Yes, indeed.
So you're a composer. Is that and you did you study that at Harvard, or you did?
I did. It's
That's unusual, isn't it?
well, some people say you can walk through the music building at Harvard and not hear a note. It's that kind of a place. That's changed a lot now, but it was a lot of harmony, theory, counterpoint, orchestration, history, of course. But I combined that with dramatic literature. So I had what they call a special concentration. It wasn't a double major. It's something that didn't exist on the books and still doesn't, that combined the music studies with theater, the Greeks, Shakespeare, writing, and German, French, and Italian. Opera was a big interest of mine at the time, and so I thought, I should learn these languages.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
I was a child. It's so much easier.
So you've composed a lot of musical theater works.
Yes,
right. Yeah,
exactly. It started off. The first pieces I wrote, for musical theater, I was 15. I had written some little pieces beforehand, but I went to Andover, just outside of Boston, and contributed some music to a musical that was otherwise using existing songs with new lyrics. So I did that, and then I wrote my first full-length musical in my senior year at Andover, and then from there it took off. Of course, while I was at Harvard, I was writing lots of little pieces, minuets, little sonatas, and things like that. It was very classical, and that continued when I went to Paris to continue studying theory, composition, conducting there.
Where did you study in Paris?
I studied privately with a man named Narcisse Bonnet, who was sort of the lead torchbearer of Nadia Boulanger.
Okay.
So he was her favorite student and continued what she had done for so many years with so many musicians. And my primary professor at Harvard was also one of Nadia Boulanger's great students, and she recommended that I go to Paris to study with Narcisse Bonnet.
Nadia Boulanger, she taught pretty much every major composer in the 20th century.
Indeed. So you track that down, and I say, yes, I'm sort of her grand student.
Right, yeah. That's the lineage.
Yeah. So that was wonderful and really very, I don't want to say strict, but very disciplined as it was meant to be, and I learned a tremendous amount in that year in Paris.
Mm-hmm. Must have been great fun.
It was a combination of hard work and a lot of fun. Being 22, 23, running around Paris, it's wonderful. And I actually went back a couple of years later, because in between that I worked at the Salzburg Festival for one summer with Peter Sellers.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
That's
Yes.
Totally cool.
He did, it was moitié, his, I think, first season or second season, and we did Saint-François d'Assise, Messiaen, an enormous 6-hour opera, modern opera. Peter Sellers said it turned out to be a tremendous success, but at first everyone was terrified. Esa-Pekka Salonen with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, the orchestra. It was an extraordinary experience, changed my life about so many things, about music, about composition, about directing. Peter Sellers was a great mentor of mine. And then that production moved to the Opera House in Paris. Mm-hmm. So I went back with that to do my work as a musical assistant director. Mm-hmm. In addition to 6 hours of singing and music, there were 6 hours on 4 channels of video that had to, be conducted.
Right.
So,
Stage, yeah.
I had my team behind the, backstage, and to get everything to appear. All those birds that St. Francis loved so much had to land at the right time.
Now, Peter's a very interesting fellow.
Yes.
We flew back on the same flight, sitting next to each other.
Oh, wow.
Berlin, actually. He had been here doing his St. Matthew's Passion.
Which I love. It's wonderful.
Great.
Yeah.
And we had a really great time chatting.
Oh, wow.
It was great. Yeah.
Small world.
It's a small world.
Tiny.
So when did you how did you end up in Berlin? Did you, after Paris, did you come directly to
Exactly.
Berlin?
Well, it's while in Paris. So in this time, 96, it was another time that I was in Paris. I was organizing a music festival and an academic conference for Harvard, the Sorbonne, and Warner Brothers Music. Mm-hmm. And connections from Harvard thought, Todd Fletcher would be great for this. Mm-hmm. So I was there doing that, and a friend during that time a German friend had a birthday party in Berlin. Mm-hmm. So I flew over to Berlin in 1996 to see what was going on, and it was a complete disaster, an awful, beautiful, wonderful mess. Mm-hmm. And I was intrigued, having spent so much time in, beautiful Paris and in parts of Switzerland.
Salzburg.
In Salzburg, exactly. And then to come to Berlin and say, what in the world is this? I loved it. And so I said, as soon as I get a chance, I want to come back here. But soon after that birthday party in Berlin, I was in London. I was being in Paris at the time. I was always going all over the place, as I still do. And I was telling a friend I was in Berlin and it's wonderful. And he said, my parents have an apartment, a studio in Wilmersdorf. I didn't know what that meant at the time. And it's free. If you'd like to rent that, you can do that. So I started renting an apartment for a couple of hundred Deutsche Marks. Yeah, exactly. It was almost no money. And that started everything. And from there, I was here sometimes, back and forth. And really in about 2000, 99, 2000 is when I came back to Berlin and really started doing projects here. Mm-hmm.
And what kind of projects did you do? What brought you here to do projects? These your educational projects or other?
Yes. Well, in the beginning, I just wanted to be in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
And I was writing and composing, and the mark was weak and the dollar was strong, and I was that young expat artist. And Berlin is still full of young expat artists who need to produce something to keep mom and dad happy. And So I thought, okay, well, let me do what I've been doing in Switzerland, and I've done in Maine at camps. Let me do that in Berlin. So I started a summer camp. It was, a paid summer camp. You pay a little bit of money and you give me your kids from 9 till 6. They learn either English or German, and primarily through music and theater. But somehow everyone said, oh, this is great, but we can't afford that. And so I said, okay, well, send them to me anyway. And so I ended up with this project that lost money, but I had a lot of wonderful kids and happy parents. And a colleague of mine at the time said, well, you're basically doing a nonprofit project. Why don't you actually just do a nonprofit project? I said, yeah, I think I'll do that. And at the same time, she found a call for proposals for projects that would lead to better integration of minorities, which for the most part meant third-generation Turks whose grandparents came here to rebuild Germany as guest workers. And only much later, in many cases, did Germany realize, oh, they're not going back. What do we do? And so it was a big thing several years ago, this integration of the Turks. So I entered this prize and this competition, and I won the prize, a project prize, and used things that I'd learned my whole life about learning and teaching language through the arts to help these kids who would sometimes show up at kindergarten not speaking German, develop an appreciation for German and have fun learning German through music and theater. And that first project has led to many others. And I've said, this is my last project, I need to go back to New York, I need to finish the great musical. I don't know, Craig, I don't know. Maybe I'll keep one foot here and one foot there.
I tried that for a year.
Yeah, but that's how it all began and continues.
So what does the project look like, or can you talk about one that you've done?
Yeah.
I know you've done work with the American Embassy when we had a different ambassador, and some of those projects were very much about this integration.
Exactly. And of course, back in the day, everyone thought, oh, the third generation Turks, how are we going to get them integrated? What a challenge. That was before the refugees started coming. And so having done several projects over the years, this first project led to a collaboration with the embassy in 2006, and that led to other projects. By the time 2015 came along, I was known a bit for doing projects like this.
You're being modest.
And so through Chancellor Merkel's office, and she was aware of what we had done in 2008, she and President Bush, back in the day, actually discussed it a little bit because the ambassador was very much, Ambassador Timken in those days was very much involved, and so it was, oh, this is a nice thing, it's wonderful. So somehow it came back. If you could do that with the Turks, can you help us with the refugees? Absolutely. Easier said than done, but I did sort of the kind of project that I do. I do variations of it, but the basic project, the basic framework, to answer your question is I bring a bunch of kids, young people, actually up to the biggest project, they were up to age 26, but they're mostly teenagers, early 20s. We bring them together and we say, we're going to create a musical. It's like, what?
What's a musical?
Yeah, exactly. What's a musical? And that's where we begin. And skipping ahead either a couple of months or several months, in this case of the project with the Chancellor, 10 months later, there was a full-length, 2-hour-long musical with chamber orchestra, with originally created sets and costumes, and a little bit of a tour. So
now, do you write all the music, or do the kids?
Or
do you do it in collaboration?
It depends on the situation. We do it in both ways. With this project, we brainstorm. So I'll go back to the beginning. We sit there, we talk about what a musical is. We talk about, Aristotle and theories of drama. We keep it all basic, using whatever film they just saw. And then we talk about writing music and lyrics and perfect rhymes and imperfect rhymes and all of this, so they get a basis in that. Then we start brainstorming about ideas for what would make a good musical. So we do that in groups. The kids come back, they present their ideas to the large group, and then they decide on using normally bits and pieces of each story to come up with a story. Now, I take that and then I use what I've studied and done for so many years to sort of make it a sound story with some structure. And then we break it down. We say, okay, there can be a song here, a song there. And then they come back to me with ideas they've brainstormed for the songs. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes I say, well, we write a lyric, sing what you think would work there. And they may have an idea, maybe I get a rhythm, maybe I get 3 notes out of it. I take their input and then I go away and I write. And then I come back and I say, how about this? And they say, yes, that's great, or that's not what we meant. Maybe you can do this. And so we go back and forth. And eventually we end up with a musical. The big one had 22 songs in it. I go away, do the orchestrations by myself, and then we present it. And everyone, they can't believe it. The kids themselves, that's the best part. Because in the beginning, they're constantly saying, oh, we can't do that. We can't do that. What? A musical? No way. And so the goal is not to create, the next Leonard Bernstein or Stephen Sondheim, but it's to show these kids that they're capable of far more than they ever imagined possible. So once they have written a song or even a lyric or a melody, it changes their whole way of looking at the world, and the way their friends and the way their parents and the way their teachers look at the world. So that's in a nutshell what we do. Start from nothing and end up regularly with a big production.
Now, this is what's so amazing about projects like this to me, is that, I've done a couple too, but not on the same scale as you have. But children need to be challenged. And I find so many of the teachers don't give them the opportunities to grow. They just teach them reading and writing and passing a test. Yes. And that is not how people learn.
I agree with you completely. And it's one of my big gripes about, I suppose, the education system in general, but I've run up to it in Germany a bit. Not anymore, but in the beginning, there was a lot of that.
Oh, you must have had a lot of resistance.
Absolutely. Yeah. Herr Fletcher, that may have worked here, but it's not going to work with our kids. Our kids are really challenging. I say, come on, let me go in there. Yeah, they're just kids. And I've discovered I can write I can indulge myself with some sometimes slightly atonal bits. And the kids, they do it. I don't say this is a little bit challenging or unusual. I say, we're going to learn this. And they learn it. They rise to our level of expectation, and that's so important. When they go into school and the teachers think, oh, here they come again, and have low expectations, then they're going to reach those expectations. I go in and I expect things from these children that no one has ever expected of them. And when they hit those levels, the reaction, as I say, with the kids, the families, especially the teachers and the school directors or the other people who are looking after the kids. I do a lot of work also with kids who've been taken away from their families. So when everyone comes back and sees that, it's amazing. So I agree 100%. You have to challenge these kids because they have no idea what they're capable of. They have so much potential in them, and it's our job as educators or as musicians or anybody who gives a speech before a concert or does a master class to help excite and inspire children and young people and show them that they're capable of more than they thought possible.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons the Leonard Bernstein Young People's Concerts were such a success, because he never talked down to the kids. Exactly. I remember when I first saw it when I was 4, that I'm sitting there watching this man, highly charismatic, talking to me like an adult.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I knew these things. And I think that is a real challenge for students because the teachers don't expect much.
Right.
And that's a tragedy.
Exactly, and I also was inspired. I have to say, I didn't see it live.
Yeah,
okay, I
you're
did see
much
it.
younger than me. I know.
Okay, but I think I saw the first ones on VHS, so
Yeah.
that, I will concede that. But yes, to speak to them, to not speak down to them is so important, and to be tough with them. There's some things like, Fletcher, you are being a little bit tough, and so-and-so's crying now. Well, so-and-so's crying right now, but he will be overjoyed when he pulls this off on opening night to a standing ovation. And that's what happens. To have true success, to experience true joy through art with these kids, they do have to suffer a little bit. It's hard work. They reach a point and they say, okay, I want to stop. I want to play video games. I want to do this. I want to go that. So you do have to push them. And they appreciate those people who push them and who challenge them, because it's those people who they understand later, the children, they saw something in me. So yes, I agree with you completely.
So you're working on a project right now at the moment?
I'm working on a few different things. I'm working on a big project for the end of the year. I may push it a little bit into next year. I want to do a project that involves a large group of people. So I do projects, the biggest I've done is with 100, not all on stage, some backstage, some behind the scenes, all of that.
You have to have people build sets.
Yeah, exactly. And that's an important part of the projects we do, because if we start with nothing, and we're not only teaching kids how to perform, we're teaching them how to write a business plan, how to build a set, and all of that. But I love to put Berlin on stage. I would love to go to all of the different areas. So I've worked a lot with refugees. I've worked a lot with third generation immigrants. I'd like to work with the elderly, with handicapped people. And I'd love to do some massive show. So I'm preparing that, talking to some people about that. And that's looking quite interesting. In addition to some larger projects that I'm working on for myself, for hopefully that will turn into musicals on large stages with large audiences. So busy.
Yeah, and in the summer you also do a camp, right?
Yes.
On top of everything else.
Right. There were a few projects that I do. Some of them during the holiday period. So Easter break, summer, and fall. I do a project with the Berlin Children and Youth Foundation that is meant to, first of all, give kids something to do. It's refugees, again, in this case, we've been doing this since 2016, but to teach language and to use our method, music and theater, and creating something from scratch in 2 weeks. We have the kids for 6 hours a day, and we do that. I do another project at the Burg Hohenzollern. I do 2 or 3 projects there. One is writing poetry and lyrics. Another is creating a musical. I do a project, we'll do it next year, with Israelis and Palestinians. We started doing that in 2009. I like to bring people of different backgrounds and conflicting areas or ways of thinking together through the arts. And Plural Arts International, that's the name of my organization. It's about bringing people of different backgrounds together through the arts. So Israelis and Palestinian kids who, not just Arab Israelis who live in Israel, but from the other side of the wall, they can never meet over there. So they have to go somewhere else. So the Palestinian kids fly through Amman and then come to Stuttgart and meet the Israelis, and we go to a castle an hour outside of Stuttgart to work. Also, I've done projects with Macedonians and Albanians in Macedonia, but ethnic Albanians who go to Albanian schools, who literally in Skopje live on one side of a river. I mean, there's a true, and you walk there and all of a sudden it's a different, and they don't mix. The first day of the rehearsal, the Macedonians here, the Albanians there. But again, you look at the show that results, and it's a beautiful thing. You can't tell who's who.
Right.
So.
Well, this is the magic of arts and music.
Absolutely.
Have you ever thought about doing an adult camp for people who are trying to learn languages?
Oh man, adults are problematic.
Oh, thanks.
But I think, we can do an opera cab. We can take a libretto, and study that. And die Zauberflöte was an important part of my learning German, and der Rosenkavalier and these things. So yes, maybe we can do that.
Okay.
I do love the idea of an adult camp, getting out of the city, living in the country, and
You can find places. There's enough empty schlosses.
Exactly. Well, what a fun idea.
So what are some of the reasons you love Berlin, besides all these projects and the fact that you can bring all these diverse people together? But you must you love the culture. Do you get a chance to experience it?
Yes, absolutely. You walk out of your door, and there's something happening. There's so many performances, so many concerts, operas, all the opera houses, as we all know, and it's not like buying a ticket to the Met.
No,
or
you can actually afford it.
Yes, exactly.
Get a glass of champagne with it.
Yeah, exactly. So you can go regularly. I was just shocked looking at the concert. I'm sure you're going. I have to see what kind of strings I can pull. Lang. 96 euros is the top ticket price for, it's just wonderful opportunities everywhere. And in addition, I walk out of my door, less so now because I live in Mitte. That was once upon a time this mess that I was talking about. Now it's anything but a mess. But still, I'm inspired by the different people and the different kinds of, the different neighborhoods that you can wander around. And you just see all kinds of different kinds of influences and impulses and things that inspire me.
I remember Berlin in the 80s when the Mauer was up, and how, being an American and staying in West Berlin when I came, I was able to go to East Berlin, and, and it was pretty much empty.
Yeah, I'm sure. I can only imagine.
And even in West Berlin, I remember going to Hinterhof restaurants with no walls. And
it's great.
It was really different, but it had an edge in it, and people were creative. Especially in West Berlin, it was very creative part of the city. And when the wall fell, it was a very emotional time for everybody. And Berlin began to change and develop very quickly, but it became such an exciting international city.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons I like it so much.
Yes.
The diversity of the people that live here.
Mm-hmm.
I have Danish friends, Swiss friends, French friends, Spanish friends, American friends,
Exactly.
And it's just so exciting, and people are really here to contribute and create. And where was I the other day? I was in Prenzlauer Berg. It was up by Nordbahnhof and going to an event. And there were so many young people. I felt like an old man because it's so young over there.
That is something that shocks my friends when they come here. They say, it's so full of young people. It's young people, and then there's also the young parents in Prenzlauer Berg and everything. It's amazing just to go around, to do a loop around Berlin, as I essentially did today. I started in Mitte. I had to go to Gesundbrunnen, where it's very multicultural. Then down to Friedrichstraße, over here, to the classic West Berlin, beautiful West Berlin, beautiful buildings. And so you get on short journeys, you get a taste of a lot in Berlin, and I love that.
I tell friends when they come to Berlin, just get on a tram and take it from one end to the other. And
Exactly.
you'll see, it changes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing I love about Berlin. It's the Kietzes, Charlottenburg, Wilmersdorf, Schöneberg, Friedrichshain, Mitte, and Tiergarten. It's just...
It's all different, so completely different.
It's so exciting.
Yeah.
So, well, good luck with all your projects.
Thank you, Craig.
And I really
Thank you.
appreciate you taking the time and sharing what you do, because it's of great interest, and I think it'll be of great interest to my viewers, because I don't think people realize all the diversity and all the wonderful things that people do in Berlin to help contribute to make this a better city, and in essence also make a better world. So your work is really important, and I'm glad you came by to share it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, it's always a pleasure to see you. You know that. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Todd Fletcher as much as I did, and thank you for tuning in to Berlin Conversations. Please be sure you subscribe so you don't miss some of the wonderful upcoming guests I'm going to be having. Like it, and feel free to share with anybody, because these are interesting conversations we're having. And also please visit my website, www.craigurquhart.com. Thank you very much for listening, and see you next time.